Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where I just had a interesting crashing issue. But it was right at the beginning of the episode, so I figured I'd just restart the episode and we'd just go over what we did. We got a little bit of tech, so we have access to things like air brakes now. We upgraded the Science Center. We'll actually go over all of that in just a moment, because I put this vehicle together here for doing our test at the launch site of the Thumper that we need. Now, this Thumper has no fuel inside of it, so we shouldn't be going anywhere, in theory. And we will just run that test. We're flamed out. Fantastic. And we will delete all of those messages. Okay, and there we go. We'll just recover this. Now, we don't have this surface sample, right? So the other thing that I want to do before we really cover too much else is I want to hop back into the VAB, and we're just going to get rid of that, and we're going to launch just this capsule. And the point here is just to get out with somebody. It doesn't really matter who. We'll have Jeb get out, grab a surface sample, and we'll just get that sweet, sweet science. And we'll recover that. Fantastic. So, there we go. That's a little extra science. Now you'll notice our science is very low. I upgraded the R&D, and that cost over half of our money. But I also grabbed us a couple of extra techs, specifically this one for access to the aero brakes, this one for access to the relay antenna, and I also grabbed landing here. Now we're not going to do anything with landing just yet, but we're going to need that. But we were in here when the game crashed, and we were looking at this, and all we have right now is plant flag on the moon. Now, I don't want to do this quite yet. We definitely want to land on the moon, but we've also got this Explore Kerbal, which is rendezvousing in orbit. That's something we will do, so we're going to grab that. Now, we've also got a couple position satellite missions, and we need money, and these pay pretty well. So I think we are going to accept position a satellite in a polar orbit of Kerbal, in a polar orbit of the moon, as well as in a specific orbit of Kerbal. And this is the one we're going to do first, probably. That's pretty high up. But I'm going to want to create a standard unmanned quasi-heavy lift rocket. And unfortunately, we're going to have to use the Probodobodyne Hex for that. Does this have a reaction wheel? It does, but it's a crappy reaction wheel. Okay. We'll go ahead and put on a small inline reaction wheel. We're going to need a communications relay on this, because this is going to be a communications satellite. So we'll put that on. We're not planning on bringing this back. As far as fuel for the actual satellite goes, we will put on, say, just a T200, probably. And then a Terrier to be able to move that around if necessary. And this is our overall payload. Now, do we have... We do have fairings. Fantastic. So we'll go ahead and put on a TD12 decoupler. And I'm going to name this the Highlander 1. Excellent. So named because of the jump-capable battle mech. Fantastic. So now we're going to need a second stage here. And in this second stage, we're just going to have a T800 and a Terrier. That's our second stage. So now we will need a first stage. And our first stage will, of course, decouple from there. Not a reaction wheel. What am I talking about? TD12 decoupler. There we go. And we are going to have this first stage be very simple. It's just going to be a pair of T800s, like so. And the engine is going to be a swivel. Now, what's our thrust to weight here? Probably garbage. 0.98. Yes, it is indeed garbage. Okay. Now, I do want to put on a tiny amount more up here. We want to have a thermometer on here, because we want to make sure that if we get a contract to get science from the space around the area that this is, we can just hop over there and grab the science from the thermometer. We don't need anything else there, but we do need a source of power. And we're going to have 4 photovoltaic panels, just like that. And that'll give us all the power that we need. Excellent. Now we probably do want a fairing here, so on this side of the decoupler, we are going to put in a quick fairing, an Airstream protective shell, and this is just going to be a pretty simple fairing like that. Excellent. That'll do the trick. And now our thrust weight is even worse. Excellent. 0.96. 0.96 is probably enough because we're just going to asparagus stage this. So, well, not probably technically asparagus stage, but we want to bring this to bicoupled, and we want to then put on essentially the same center core here. And we will go ahead and do that like so. Excellent. And we'll need to look at our... This is actually going to be reliance over here, by the way. We're going to need to look at our center of mass compared to center of lift, but we'll do that in a moment. So we will just get these hooked on with struts. Excellent. And then we will need fuel flow flowing from the outside in, like so. We're going to want this to fire at the same time. This decouples. Yep. We'll probably manually stage the fairing. Excellent. Okay, and then we'll just put a nose cone on here. We need a slightly larger nose cone. There we go. Excellent. How's that look for thrust to weight? 1.52? That should do the trick. Our overall delta V is almost 5,000, so this rocket should be fine. Like, we're going to have so much DV once we actually get into orbit. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. We aren't working any issues over here, so that seems fine. We are, of course, going to have to check our center of mass versus our aerodynamic overlay, which is not currently on because we don't have any aerodynamic parts. So we're going to need a control surface like a winglet somewhere over here. And technically, yeah, that's going to be a little awkward, but I was intending to have there be two, kind of like this. Now, I think those are a little bit off in terms of their height, so let's just adjust that. Snap both of those into place. Excellent. Now, our center of lift is way below where we want it to be in terms of our center of mass. We can bring this up, potentially. The other thing that we could maybe do... I mean, we could place these on the center core. And I'm not sure there's a reason not to. So if we were to place these on the center core, somewhere like here would probably be about right. Now I have these attached here so that they fall off in this direction, away from the rocket. And I think we're okay for an experimental launch of the Highlander 1. Now, which of these orbits are we targeting for our first one? We're probably targeting the specific orbit around Kerbal, is what I'm thinking. Now, that's going to be a really far orbit. 13 million meters up. But that should be okay with our DV, in theory. I hope. I guess we'll see. So we're not going to get much for science out of this. This run is, of course, mostly for money. We're throttled up. SAS is on. Let's check our staging. That all looks good. And we may as well combine these stages. Okay. So let's take a quick look at our orbit. That's pretty inclined. We're not aiming for this orbit, by the way. We're aiming for this one here. It's a 22-degree inclination. It's most efficient to change your inclination when you're like as far away from the body as you can get. So I think we're just going to launch into a relatively equatorial orbit, and then we'll adjust it later on. Hopefully we've got the delta V to do this, but I think we do. Both of these stages, their DV is going to go up dramatically as we make our way into space. And off we go. So let's see how this ends up working. So far we seem to be pretty aerodynamically stable. I want to keep going up for a little ways in a straight-ish direction. Yeah, you can see our delta V is going up dramatically as we climb rather than down. Our thrust to weight is definitely a little on the low side. We could potentially make this a little heavier by strapping on more side boosters, but I think we're okay. We're already approaching an apoapsis of 20 kilometers. Hello, son. Fancy meeting you here. Make that an apoapsis of 30 kilometers. Let's go ahead and begin our gravity turn. Oh, we're seeing some significant aerodynamic resistance to this turn. Ditch those stages, and now we should be much better off. Excellent. And we're just going to burn directly at the horizon for a little while. We've still got 1,500 meters per second in this tank, so that's great. Our apoapsis is going up, but time to apoapsis is going down, so we definitely need to be working on our horizontal speed. Which is exactly what we are doing. That was a nice and stable launch. And I actually feel like that gravity turn was about the right time, like, in terms of our delta V, right? Or not delta V, in terms of our thrust-to-weight ratio, right? Because if our thrust-to-weight ratio was a little higher, it would be more efficient to start the gravity turn earlier. But our thrust-to-weight ratio was not higher, so here we are. So we're definitely going to have to spend a little bit of time in circularization with this engine, but that's okay. We're still not technically out of the atmosphere yet. We should probably angle up a little bit and get a little bit more vertical speed. Yeah, time to apoapsis is now increasing. That's a good sign. Our height is still not quite where we want it to be. I'm still just burning at the horizon. We're still looking mostly for horizontal speed. Now our apoapsis is in space. And off we go. We can go ahead and deploy this fairing, though. Get that out of here. Don't need to be carrying that weight anymore. And in fact, I'd like to just get rid of this stage entirely, but alas, that is not an option. Okay, time to apoapsis is currently increasing, but our periapsis is coming up quickly. I'm going to go ahead and cut the throttle here. And our apoapsis is located here, so we will go ahead and do something along the lines of this. And we're going to have quite a lot of work ahead of us, to be sure, to get to the proper orbit, but we've got a lot of DV in the tank. So this is a burn time of 16 seconds, and we're going to want to burn this at T-minus 8. So we'll just warp ahead towards that. Okay. Warp ahead a little bit further. We are draining electric charge currently. Oh, I warped too far. That's okay. We'll compensate for it. And we may have to wait until we recharge our batteries to do the next burn. We'll have to see. But this is fine for an orbit. So we'll just turn the SAS off for right now, and we will float freely while we work on getting this to where we need to be. So we want our apoapsis to be basically... Well, we want our apoapsis to be over here, and then we want to set our ascending and descending nodes accordingly. So we can go ahead and burn over this way. We're going to need to burn a ways more. Yeah, that'll do. So that's 857 dV right there. Just trying to get this adjusted a little bit more. That'll do. Okay. And that burn will be on the day side, so that's perfect. We want to go ahead and warp to here. Our electric charge is going to completely run out. And now it's back. And that's why I wanted to warp. Okay. We'll go ahead and get to where we want to be, which is right over here. I'll get SAS on. That would help. And we'll go ahead and warp to that maneuver. Excellent. So we want to start burning this at about 40 seconds. So let's warp towards that. Okay, that's a little closer. Technically like 39.5, I think. Yeah. So right about now. And off we go. Let's make some money. So we've got, I think, enough DV to make this happen, but maybe only just. I mean, this is a pretty wacky orbit that it's asking us to put this into. But we'll see how this ends up working. It should, in theory, be fine. How's our orbit looking? We've got a ways to go yet in this burn, obviously. We seem to have a bit of a DV shortfall here. How did that happen? That's okay. We will just continue burning prograde-ish until such a time as we are far enough out here. That won't be much more DV. Okay, a little further. There. Now, of course, our inclination is massively wrong, but that's okay. We will adjust that after we get our periapsis correct. So at the apoapsis, we are going to need to, of course, burn prograde to get our periapsis out. And we have missed the apoapsis slightly, I think. We'll want to have this around here, or so. And yeah, we've overshot a little bit. Oops, that was not the direction I wanted to go. I'm going to actually get rid of this maneuver, and we'll try that again. Right at that apoapsis, we want to go ahead and embiggen our orbit to be maybe not quite that big, but somewhere around here-ish. Yeah, we're going to need to circularize our orbit to some degree. So we'll just push this out a little ways. Why is it putting the apoapsis? Okay, we'll just encapsulate the orbit a little bit, like that. That'll do. And then we'll make adjustments later. It's not like we're going to be short on DV. Okay, let's go ahead and warp to this maneuver. Goodbye, Kerbal. You're never going to be seen again by this probe. Well, you will. You'll be seen again, but... Okay, so this is a 28-second burn. So we're going to want to burn this at T-minus 14 seconds. We'll go ahead and warp towards that. Okay, so right about now. Just adjust that heading ever so slightly. So we're not even going to be close in terms of the DV requirements for this. Like, we're massively overbuilt here. Okay. We are showing an encounter with the moon. That's slightly problematic. We definitely need to change our inclination. So let's go ahead and start working on that as soon as we can, in hopes that we no longer have this moon encounter. Okay. I don't want this moon encounter to be a thing. The encounter's over here, though, in 92 days. Okay, whatever. We need to adjust this inclination, and I apologize for the flickering. Let's go ahead and get this flattened down to about... I need to bring this down a little further. That's pretty close. Okay. So I want to... Yeah, I'm done with that. There we go. Finally. Let's warp to that maneuver, but first... let's go ahead and get turned for that burn. There we go. And we'll warp to this maneuver. This is a 14-second burn, so we're going to want to burn this at T-minus 14 seconds. So we will warp a little bit closer. Or, no, T-minus 7 seconds. What am I talking about? Excellent. 7. Okay, we'll just continue burning a little bit right here. That should be good. How are we looking? That is definitely an improvement. That's pretty close. What are our advanced orbital characteristics looking like? 21.7 degrees. Let's see if we can push this straight to a 22-degree inclination. There we go. Okay, so now we need to change our apoapsis and periapsis accordingly. Our next location that we'll be at is the periapsis right here. So we'd want to burn prograde here-ish. Actually, we'd want to burn more over here to get our apoapsis where it wants to be. Maybe a little retrograde. No, I don't want to burn any normal here. Where is that? Let's get rid of that. 0 meters per second. Thank you very much. Excellent. That should be fine. So we'll go ahead and warp to that maneuver, but first I do want to get in position. There we go. And we'll warp to that. Excellent. This is only a 1-second burn. So this is only 30 meters per second. Okay. Let's get a tiny amount of repositioning done here. I'm not going to throttle all the way up. We're just going to do something kind of like this. How are we looking? That'll do. Okay, next burn at the apoapsis. We want to raise the periapsis up to that point. 33 meters per second. We have so much spare delta V, it's not even funny. Okay. So, let's get to that last burn. That'll be in 5 days. There we go. And I would say this was a pretty successful maiden flight of our communications satellite program. Pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and warp this forward a little bit. We're going to do the same sort of a careful burn. And then all we should have to do is hold stability for 10 seconds, I believe. Oh, we had to have a thermometer on here anyway. Okay. So let's just maintain stability, and there we go. Contract complete. Fantastic. We're going to leave this guy exactly where he is, and head on back to the Space Center. It is, however, time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to hopefully do at least one more of these contracts, because we need to get the money built up. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.